In the Middle Ages, becoming rich wasn't simple. In fact, for most people, it was nearly impossible. Wealth wasn't measured by coins or gold or treasure. It was measured by something far more powerful: land. And for a poor man born with nothing, the path to wealth began with understanding one harsh truth: the system was never designed for him. Today, we think of wealth as money, businesses, or investments. But in medieval society, wealth was physical: acres of land, cattle, grain, people you controlled. If you owned nothing, you were nothing. And the people who owned everything were the nobles. Nobles didn't become rich by working. They became rich because they were born into families that owned enormous amounts of land. Entire villages, forests, rivers, and every person who worked on that land paid them taxes. It was the perfect system if you were on top. For peasants, wealth was out of reach. A lifetime of work barely produced enough to survive. Most people never held a single silver coin. Instead, they paid taxes with wheat, eggs, wool, and endless hours of labor. Even a hard-working man lived on the edge of starvation. But there were exceptions. A new class began to rise: merchants. They weren't nobles. They didn't rule land, and they didn't inherit power. They built it by trading salt, iron, fabrics, spices, and anything people needed. They broke the cycle and created a path to wealth through skill, risk, and opportunity. In the bustling markets of medieval towns, a smart merchant could earn in one day what a peasant earned in a month. But success wasn't guaranteed. Prices changed, products spoiled, thieves prowled. One bad deal could destroy everything. Yet for many, this was the only real chance at riches. Some merchants went even further. They traveled dangerous trade routes across mountains and forests. They carried goods worth a fortune and risked their lives every mile. But those who survived came back with exotic items no one had ever seen. Their profits were enormous. Another path to wealth was through craftsmanship. Blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, and tailors weren't rich, but they earned far more than farmers. A master craftsman could even save enough to open a workshop, hire apprentices, and slowly build a small empire of his own. But one group controlled even more wealth than kings: the church. Monasteries collected tithes, land, and donations. They stored grain, owned vineyards, and managed massive estates. Serving the church offered stability, protection, and sometimes opportunity. Power was another form of currency. A loyal servant to a powerful lord could rise through ranks, gain influence, and receive privileges money could never buy. Access to the lord meant access to decisions, land, and wealth that ordinary people were forbidden from touching. For the rare few who saved enough money, buying land was the smartest step. Even a small plot changed a man's life. Land meant independence, control, ownership. It meant you no longer worked for someone else. You worked for yourself. Once you owned land, everything changed. Your children inherited it. Their children inherited it. And for the first time in your family's history, poverty wasn't guaranteed. You had built something that lasted beyond your lifetime. Marriage wasn't just romance. It was strategy. A smart marriage could unite families, combine land, and create alliances. Some of the wealthiest medieval families built their fortune not with weapons, but with wedding rings. For ambitious men, becoming a knight offered status, land, and generous rewards. But it required years of training, expensive equipment, and powerful connections. Still, a single act of bravery in battle could elevate a man from obscurity to nobility. But the most common way to become rich wasn't heroic at all. You waited. You waited for a father, an uncle, a cousin, someone with land to die. Inheritance determined fate. One signature could transform a poor man into a lord overnight. Yet for most people, wealth remained a dream. Fear, danger, taxes, war, disease. The medieval world was unforgiving. A single bad harvest could erase an entire year of work, and very few ever escaped the class they were born into. But some did rise: merchants who bet everything, craftsmen who mastered their trade, knights who fought with courage, servants who earned a lord's trust, and ordinary peasants who saved, waited, and eventually bought land of their own. To be rich in the Middle Ages wasn't about luxury. It meant security. Food for winter, protection from enemies, the power to decide your own fate. It meant your children wouldn't suffer as you did. But imagine a world where any person could rise, where land wasn't restricted to nobles, where skill mattered more than birth. Medieval society would have been transformed. Innovation, equality, prosperity, all of it would have arrived centuries earlier. In the end, becoming rich in the Middle Ages required courage, patience, and a willingness to risk everything. The world was hard, brutal, and unfair. But even in the darkest times, ambition found a way. And those who dared to change their destiny shaped history.